Vitamins and minerals, chloride. We will now discuss this fourth nutrient involved in electrolyte and fluid balance. We first see here sources of chloride. So the food sources of chloride that we find are table salt, eggs, fresh meat, and seafood. We will see that the absorption of chloride is similar to the absorption process of sodium. Chloride follows sodium through the enterocyte. Also, we see that chloride is absorbed passively. So we see in this diagram that we saw previously for sodium, in this electroneutral sodium and chloride process of absorption, we see here that with the absorption of sodium, and this is a sodium hydrogen ion exchange, we also have the uptake of chloride through the brushed border of the enterocyte, and as chloride enters, we see that bicarbonate will exit the cell. We see that movement from the enterocyte through the basolateral membrane into circulation is a passive diffusion process for chloride. We see that in addition to chloride being absorbed through the enterocyte, chloride is also secreted from the cells of the stomach and also throughout the intestine. So we see here that it's a major secretory product of the stomach in the form of hydrochloric acid. But we also see this electrogenic chloride secretion occurring particularly along the large intestine. We see that chloride is the only ion actively secreted by the epithelium. We'll talk about the functions of chloride. So a primary function of chloride is acting as a major electrolyte. Chloride is the most abundant anion in extracellular fluid. We see that in the extracellular fluid, it balances the positive charge of sodium ion. And we can see in this table, which we also reviewed in the slide presentation for sodium, we can see when we look at chloride here, and this is chloride levels in plasma, chloride levels within the cell. So we see that there's higher concentration of chloride in the plasma versus inside the cell, and we see that chloride is an anion. The other electrolyte that is going to be in higher concentrations in the plasma as compared to inside the cell is the sodium. However, we see that sodium is the cation. So sodium is going to be the primary electrolyte that is the cation in plasma or extracellular fluid, and then chloride is going to be the electrolyte that will be the anion balancing the sodium in plasma. Here we see other functions of chloride. So we already mentioned it's involved with the gastric secretion of hydrochloric acid. We also see that chloride is released by white blood cells in the process of phagocytosis, and this is to aid in destroying foreign substances. Also, we see that chloride acts as an exchange anion for the bicarbonate within red blood cells. And so we'll talk about this process in a little bit more detail. So we have carbon dioxide that is produced by the tissues in various processes of metabolism. So the carbon dioxide produced by the tissues will need to be transported to the lungs to be expired. So the CO2 produced by the tissues is actually transported to the lungs through plasma in the form of bicarbonate. So the CO2 is converted to bicarbonate, and it is in that form that is transferred in plasma to the lungs, and it's transported actually by the red blood cells. So we see that in the red blood cells, carbon dioxide is converted to bicarbonate by the enzyme carbonic anhydrase. We see then a chloride bicarbonate exchanger protein then transports the bicarbonate out of the red blood cells into plasma. So the bicarbonate goes out of the red blood cells into plasma. Concurrently, we see that the chloride in plasma then gets transported into the red blood cells. So we see it's this exchange system between the bicarbonate in the red blood cells and the chloride in plasma. Without chloride, bicarbonate exchange does not occur. Here we see the adequate intake level for chloride is 2,300 milligrams per day. So inadequate intake of chloride and low body status of chloride will lead to this deficiency symptoms. So primarily severe diarrhea and vomiting will actually be symptoms of chloride deficiency. We see the tolerable upper intake level is 3.6 grams per day. We see here that a subportion of the population actually will exhibit what's called a dysfunctional chloride transport, and those are individuals with cystic fibrosis will have dysfunctional chloride transport. So with this, there's mutation of this protein called cystic fibrosis transmembrane conductance regulator. And this condition will result in the production of thick mucus that obstructs many of the body's glands. It may cause damage to many organs, especially the lungs and the pancreas. So this underscores the important role of the chloride transport.